Hi, good morning and welcome to the first of 3 clips on the Matrix GT800FX solid state guitar power amp. I'm going to do this in 3 stages. This first one is basically all talk. It's an overview, so skip that if you're not interested. But I'll give you a quick overview on the development of the GT, inputs, outputs, sound, fan noise, power noises, all that kind of stuff. The second set of clips I'll do will be purely through the Matrix, no comparisons. The third set will be a comparison between the VHT 252 power amp and the Matrix, valve versus solid state, and tweak patches to try and get them as close as possible. Anyway, Matrix GT800FX, where did it come from? Everybody that uses, or a lot of people that use the Fractal Audio Axe FX, and several other modelers come to that, find that they need a valve power amp to actually give the final missing piece of the dynamics. For some people, solid state is fine. In fact, they think it's better, it's flatter response, lighter, no valve changes, etc. But for others, myself included, I found that I got a much better sound using a valve power amp currently. The problem with the valve power amps is they're expensive. Okay, you've already got one, like I had, but they're expensive. You've got the upkeep, annual valve changes, a little bit longer maybe if you don't use it so often, but at £100 a pop, that's quite a lot of upkeep. Then you've got the weight. I'm getting on a bit, I'm 44, I've got a slightly bad back. Carrying the VHT in the rack is quite heavy. It's a 2-man lift really. I can do it on my own, but not for too far. So a lightweight answer that sounds as good is appealing. I've currently got the Fractal and the GT800 in a rack, semi-pro rack, I'll show you. There you go, semi-pro or semi-flight. The whole rack weighs about the same as the top VHT amp does, so that kind of shows you. Anyway, Matrix is a PA amplifier company, been designing amps for a while, and they came out with an XT range. Now a couple of axe users took the XT800, which is 400 watts a side into 4 ohms, 250 into 8, and 800 watts bridged into 8, and they tried it with their rigs. Some people were perfectly happy, particularly those going FR, but some of us felt that there was still a little bit needed working with. Some felt the highs were a bit harsh in the real top end, and obviously you don't have the fizz, the high-end presence you get from valve amps. That's more to do with the V-shaped curve that most valve amps have in their EQ, rather than the Matrix, which is flat. However, there was something a little bit harsh in the tops, not as bad as some of the others like the Art SLA, but it was still there. A little bit going on in the lowers, a little bit muddy, not muddy is the wrong word, thick, I suppose. Personally, I found I could EQ most of those out. The dynamic response was a little hard. It didn't have the same give, the softness that you get from a valve amp. And for me, particularly when I'd EQ'd a patch, if I changed guitars or I changed the gain level in that patch, I had to re-EQ it again. I put this down to the input impedance, which was higher, plus 4 dB, than the valve amps. Consequently, as a percentage, when you up the gain, or you up the volume, or you change the dynamics, the VHT and the Matrix gave a different result. So what happened? Well, three of us got together, we had extensive talk with Matrix about what we liked, what we didn't like. The fan noise was a bit high, the outputs were only XLR, which are no good for those using cabs traditionally. And they tweaked and they turned, and they brought out another product. This product has been branded the Matrix GT800FX, and it has a few tweaks. The high-end filtering as well, feedback's been changed, the input sensitivity has been lowered, there's something going on in the low end. They've tweaked it slightly, put some slightly different components in. They put a different fan in with a twin speed, still not silent, but a lot better than it was. They put XLR combi jacks on, so you can use jack plugs or XLR sockets. And this is what we're left with. So what have we got? We have on the bottom of the rack Matrix GT800FX. Fairly simple layout on the front, on-off button, grill for the airflow, and 2 gains. Now I've got my B right down, I'm not using it. The A is all the way up. Round the back, this might be a bit difficult because it's in the rack. Round the back, what have we have? I don't know if you can actually see in there. There we go. We have 2 inputs. Now these are locking inputs, if you can see, and our combis. So that's a jack or an XLR. 3 modes with this power amp: traditional stereo, 2 in 2 out, traditional mono, bridged, which doubles the output, but you've also got a parallel. Basically this means that you can plug a single input in, and that is then amplified by the 2 sides of the stereo at each output. So if you're running 2 cabs that want a mono setup, not stereo, you don't have to worry about copying your patches, making them stereo, getting them in phase. All you have to do is plug your mono input in, switch it to parallel, take 1 speaker out of each, done dusted. Okay, next to the inputs you've got 2 fans, rather than the one you would normally find. Lots and lots of cooling on this, really well designed inside as well from a cooling point of view. The amp runs very, very cool. Next to that you've got a pair of outputs, again combis, jacks or Nutrix. That's pretty decent, and a power cable. And that's it. Now I'm going to show you the switch on noise, because there is a little bit of a pop. It's not huge, but there is a little bit of a pop, and you can also hear the fan noise. So I'm going to turn the axe on first. Let that boat up, so that's not, as you can hear, that's all but silent. So this is the VHT powering up. Now you listen to the pop and listen to the fans. Now where's the pop gone? No pop. Interesting. Turn it off and turn it back on again. I know why there's no pop, because I haven't plugged the blinking speaker cable in. That would help now, wouldn't it? That was so you guys could see what was going on, and I forgot to plug the thing back in. Right, okay, so into the back, into the speakers. You might get the pop this time. Again, you can hear the fan. It's not excessive, certainly not as it's designed for a live amp. Here we go. There you go, little pop. Not huge by any means. Now that fan noise, I'm kind of whispering and I'm the same kind of distance away. It's not excessive. You wouldn't want it in a studio maybe, but then if you're in a studio, why are you using a 400 watt side power amp? It's mainly for live use. If you want silent studio, you might be better off with powered monitors or another amp. Anyway, that's the overview, a little bit of history, overview of the amp. I'm now going to do another couple of clips, as I said. The first one will be just the matrix, no comparisons, using a variety of guitars, and then one with a comparison.